And keep going with us, guys. We are keep broadcasting to make sure that you can listen to our judges.
And the other thing is like Moses about to find the pose, or let them do that pose, and then try to give them like dancing or spinning or do something crazy to make something different and think out of the box, create something more creative. This is for the couple. This is for the other. Let's try something to be more funny and more creative.
I don't know how other women feel, or most women feel, but from all of the women that I've spoken to about being photographed, and we had the fortune of being able to listen to Godox this morning, and she said no one likes it when they photographed her. And it's so true. So we have to remember as photographers, when we're taking a portrait of someone, we have to listen to them. We want them to love the photos that they're in. And most women will pull apart a photo of themselves. They'll look at it and go, oh, I don't like my chin, I don't like my nose, I don't like my posture, I don't like this. They just do it. Whether they're thinking intentionally or they're aware of it, they're pulling everything apart about my posture. So it's really important to communicate. I feel like the photographer has done an incredible job here of seeing a location, a scene, and as you said, turning a car park into nothing. We've turned the scene into something that's more quite dramatic and very cinematic. But we still have a portrait of a couple here, so we've got to think, how can we refine this as we talk about in the pose? Because we don't ever want our clients to look at the photos and not love them. Any woman who is slouching in her posture, whether she does it or not, and is aware of it, when she sees it in the photo, she's going to see it. So trying to always correct posture, correct pose, and create an intimacy, connection to taking away from the visuals, what's going to happen.
And in terms of posture, a lot of concentration, and I've seen you do it, I've seen you do it, I've heard you talk about it, but when you're bringing people and listening to people out, and keeping an eye out, if there's one area of posing that you want to keep an eye on to give your portraits a more natural feel, it's shoulder tension. It's that roll shoulder. I must say this, you must say this 50 times in every session, relax your shoulders. And even from four frames later, their shoulders are tight again. And so one of the things I tell my clients, when we're in a repetitive situation, maybe an hour, is your body is going to be demanding. Your brain is going to be telling your body to do certain things, and I'm going to have to give you the same direction probably about 50 times in the next hour. It's going to be lower your chin, relax your shoulders, keep your spine. Those are all things you're going to hear me say a lot, but I want you to know that your body and brain is just finding comfort and doing some of the stuff, so I don't feel like you're doing it. So I have to see it and correct it, but please don't feel like that I have to quit, that you're doing it wrong and you have to repeat. That's my job. And so your brain doesn't like it. Your brain doesn't like it when you're doing different directions. Your brain wants to protect your body in a couple of situations, so you collapse in on yourself, protecting yourself. It's like evolutionary. It's like old lizard brain stuff that your body is doing when you're not happy in your world. And so I just let people know, say, I'm going to turn on 50 times and I'll sweat. Because your body's just doing everything else. So watch the shoulders and just reassure people. And the more that you reassure somebody how comfortable they feel, the less you're going to give them time and give them permission to not be good at it. Because unless you're photographing, a fixed video doesn't have to be good at having a picture taken. You have to be good at taking a picture. And a model has to be good at having a picture taken. But we don't work with models. We work with normal models. We work with people with everyday folks. The more comfort you create, the less you have to worry about it. But you do need to see it. And if you make one correction in your image making, in your posing, it's lots of that tension on your shoulders, and that will take your images to an almost imperceptible but undeniable next level.
Okay, I need to run to do a shoot at the Godox stand. Dario's going to carry on the feed with this, and I will see you in a few hours.
Okay. Sarah's going to go work.
Can you hold this? Yep.
Are we getting some next image, y'all?
Yep.
Dario? Alright, maybe got one more image before I gotta go. I'm gonna send it to you guys. I think you said yeah. Yeah, this is I'm so happy. Like it's fun to get to lead this. It's what a privilege it is to get to lead this. Yeah. When you have a panel, so while Dario's setting that up.
As I can't contact Jolie.
You're one of the finest judges I've ever sat with, and I mean that honestly. I tease you a lot, but you really are.
I'm out of contact, so I'm just going to run over.
So when you are in that time constraint, how does your brain work when you think of what to talk about? Because we don't have time on the panel to talk about everything we're going to talk about. So how do you prioritize the things that you're doing? So let's say you've got the location and the lighting and posing and post-production. And so how do you prioritize what you think the main is going to be? How do you pick what you're going to talk about?
It's intuitive, and it really is because for me as a judge, for a very long time like you, you do get into a rhythm, but every category is slightly different, the same sort of approach. And
I think it's opposite.
Dario is just placed
Upside down. That's yesterday.
So the first thing I look for is what grabs my attention first. Like what is it? And
Like this.
that would depend on the people as well. So we're doing a lot of wedding photos and up to one together. And for me, I'm looking at this and going, what is the first thing that stands out? It is slipping a little bit within that, so that's kind of getting to focus the right focus. And sometimes it might be the overall content, which is what I'm seeing here in this picture. The other thing, it could be connection, another thing it could be writing, another thing it could be composition. So I look at the one element that stands out first for me, and here it's the overall colour harmony. And it's kind of, I mean, there's a lot going on in this image, but because a lot of the colour tones are very simple and neat throughout I mean, it's probably the first thing that I would look at if I was asked to talk first about. And I would sort of say, you know, I'm actually really enjoying the colour harmony. And a couple of things that could be elevated here, because when it is quite sort of soft and muted like this, and we've got a bride smack bang in the middle of that table here, and we've got a lot of energy and a lot of excitement going on around, and we're taking away kind of see that emphasized in the overall. So to elevate this for me, it's because I'm going with colour harmony.
So my next name is portrait will start in the afternoon. We will do portraits part 1 and tomorrow morning portrait part 2. So I can't remember exactly if you're on 2 mannequins.
They don't always stand out if you don't help them. So sometimes giving it a little bit more contrast, a little bit more light. They look for these reviewers eye to the individual. Even a little bit more can help the storytelling of the image. So yeah, for me that's probably the first where I would start with this particular photo. And it's always different with every image, but I think about in terms of assessment, what different elements and then what is standing out from that image, and that's when
It's interesting how we're trained, you know, both intentionally and vicariously we're trained to use those elements, to talk about those elements of an award-winning image. And I believe you can get the, if you go to the Icon Awards, they are listed, I believe, in those sorts of elements that you're looking for. So whatever competition you are, whether you're competing in something like SWP, which is now your home trophy, or Joe Graphic Prize, or Icon Awards, or the International Graphic Competition, PPA, all of them use some version of the elements. Sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 11. But there's so much overlap there. And so falling back, that's how the image works. And if you know how judges think when they look at an image, that helps you not only improve as an image maker in general, but back to your trophy hunter. how do the judges think? And they're trained to talk about the elements. And so you got to ask yourself in terms of those elements. And that's, and then the byproduct of that is rising tides, is you get better. Trophy hunting does make you a better photographer in general, and so they are connected. But I think what's really interesting in this particular image is I would probably land in that high 7. And I think that the reason there's a lot to really like about this. Concept is brilliant. Posing, composition, there's so much to really like here. But there is a major disconnect between the elements. And so when you're trying to make an image say something and feel something, you have to consider that sometimes a combination of smaller elements leads up to a larger element. Right? So you've got color balance, you've got technique, that sometimes storytelling, those things all add up to impact, for different people. And every judge perceives it a little differently. But those elements have to talk to each other. They have to be working toward the same goal. And in this case, you've got a very cyan cinematic color grade going on here, which if this was a movie, this would look completely natural to the eye to have a color grade like this. But you have a very playful, joyful, whimsical creation here with a very cool, sad color palette. These colors communicate emotion. And there's a really phenomenal book that you can get used online for probably about $8, which is called The Pantone Guide to Communicating Color. And Pantone is pretty much a company that decides what colors are what, they have a whole book just on like what emotions are communicated by colors and what coloration of color. And studying something like that brings your level of understanding art up even a little more, not just photography, and the way of looking at the world associated with visuals in this case. There's a major disconnect in the technique and the color balance in storytelling. And the color grade itself is great. The color balance is great, but it doesn't fit the story. And so on another image, this would be a masterful way to look at it. If you were doing something like a noir or a sad image, but in this case, it doesn't hold up the brilliant story and the pictures. This is one of those situations where it's not a do this next time. It's a you can fix this. And so this image to me with a different color grade, different approach to the color pieces would 100% go up a category for me.
I had the privilege to judge for this one. So, if I'm not wrong, that was private party company. And I really appreciate the way that Meg is choosing perspective. Because totally vertical, it was like a drone shot or balcony. But not sure if it was directed or they play fun and have fun, private party with the bride, or maybe make them interact and adjust to things that look so cool and so funny and so original. I mean, I never saw that thing before in terms of storytelling. Everyone does something different, and I'm totally agree with you that if that was for me a black and white picture, maybe works even better. And this is the good part when judging, because we have 3, 4, 5 different judges on the same panel, so we have a different photograph, and all of them we have our own aesthetic and our own perspective of the same image, because for me, the judging procedure is like ice skating. In ice skating, actually, you have 2 sports. One about technique, and one about heli technique. And what we are like us is not the technique part of the image, because technique is equal for everybody. It's about precision, it's about technical excellence, and everything is the same. About the aesthetic, something is different from one judge to the other, and from the perspective of what I'm looking at, what you're looking. And for you, maybe the silent doesn't work, but for me, maybe the loudness doesn't work. And that's why we have differences on screen. That's what I believe. But overall, I agree with what you said.
good, Daria. Yeah. That's cramming. Follow it. No, I was
I just wanted to say a word about it. This is the Ignition action tool.
Is it wallpaper too?
It's a wallpaper. And that's the thing. So I chose this intentionally because of the color gradient, just to see and show how these really work or not. That's for you to say, to me if you work really good, because you really didn't play it. I particularly love this whole position work because I think it's the names and it's a new it's just magic, it's amazing. And it's really good. There's a subtle texture, but the way the gown is really different, it's fantastic and encourage everyone to give it a try. It's really good. It doesn't stuff for that. A lot of people ask me about it. I spend a little bit more time why this and why work and why it. Bear in mind that I'm thinking things in my own judgment. And sometimes I'm intentionally in a tricky way, like let's see if the visual is destructive. It's not really a physical, it's just for the purpose of the conversation.
Yeah, this part, as Mario has mentioned, making this an addition etching in the second version of this paper, being a warm paper, if this had been printed on, say, a breeze pool light, you would get a completely different image. Now, when it comes to printing your images for competition, my advice for anyone is always choose 3 different papers. Print the same image on 3 different papers to see which paper is going to better suit your image. Now, if you don't know where to get your images printed, the best thing is to start a conversation with someone like Darren and Sarah who can help guide you in the right direction and help you with the selection. Because there are going to be different labs all over the world that can stock different papers, and every paper is so different. And it's as we mentioned when it comes to papers, we often have our favourites because we know them, we've worked with them so often, we know our work and we can choose the right paper for our work. For something like this, I think choosing a warmer colour paper, warmer tone paper, for cooler image is kind of set the skin tone, because I think that if this had been printed on cooler paper, the skin tone would be
I think that it let's put this from the perspective of someone who's maybe a great illustrator but doesn't know anything about this. And I think that it's very important to make the distinction that you becoming an expert painter may not be part of this, and that's important. It's a completely different discipline. Some photographers get into it, some photographers let somebody else do it. But you know that there is help out there. You don't have to know the differences between photo rag papers and fine art papers and rice papers. You don't have to, there are thousands. And I would imagine there's probably some stuff in the world of paper that might be surprised Dario. You know, like there's such a ton out there. I don't know. So just like printing is a completely different discipline. And you don't have to be an expert at it. But you do have to understand that it is an important part of the process to the judges. So just like a lot of other things in your business that you like to, if you're bad at it, outsource it and let the expert do the job. And I think that that's, so if you feel like, oh, I can't include, I can't join in because I don't know this part of the discipline, it's a completely separate art. There are people that don't do it. There are people that never print. Right, yeah. So I think that's important to make that distinction that even if you can't wrap your head around printing right now, you don't print it. You can get help and help us out. But this
of both of them. I mean, it's funny and real moment, not directed. So we're talking about photojournalistic category. Actually, when you submit in photojournalistic category, you have you can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of things like talking about golden things. So when you are shooting on a wedding day, any environment, having clothes like this and have a proper exposure, and that's it. And for me, especially on the top part of the house, I prefer to have a small, more space on top of the thing. And a little bit more golden brown. It's kind of moody place of, I mean, it's flat, not enough contrast. You're looking at the white, especially on the circle of the room, it's kind of gray because it's deep down overall. So few things to make and would be elevate on the above average category in post-production.
I'd fall in this one. The image itself, I'd probably fall in the low 80s, but as presented, as printed, probably on the side. And I think that that's a huge distinction. We're going to talk about that paper here, but these kinds of images, wedding reception images, can get really tough with tonality. You can't always control the lights that are going around the room. And I just want to commend the creator of this image on doing such a wonderful job. This is a film, if this was from my it was probably Facebook. It shows such an amount of personality and even the relationship between the two. And it's like, I just think it's so funny. And it's sort of like, yeah, this is him. And he's like, what? He's like completely unaware that it's probably just a little gluttonous and weird to take a slice of cake that big. And he's like totally fine with it. So there's a lot of you can really enjoy in the movie. So this is a phenomenal job of emotion, of mood, of joy. There's a lot. But when you choose to do an image like this, and you go black and white, as Nick was talking about, you're responsible for the tonality of this image. And if anything, you can see that the maker is aware of it, because you've got, look how bright that cake is. Look, compared to the piece of cake in his hand, versus the cake that's sitting next to him, they're like a stark difference of brightness. And that is, to me, shows a slightly heavy hand in point of too heavy of a hand to where it becomes really unnatural. Except for you've got great specularity, great lights on that piece of cake you're showing. I think the attempt there
So I'm helping Gary
is to draw your eye there because that's sort of the
but I'm probably going to miss that minor.
Whereas to me,
But we are late for the program, so. What's that? We have Oh, you're late? Okay.
rather than trying to make them look their perfect. And so the bride's expression, the specularity on her face is not where the cake is. But if you look at his ear has so much specularity, but the rest of his skin tone is really muted. So the burning and dodging, the control of the tonality here is just a little overcooked. And I think that's what's hurting the image, especially on a paper where you really have to stretch to get specularity on this particular, flat paper. And so this could really benefit from just backing off the paper and dodging it. Let some of those highlights come in, because when you remove specularity, you remove dimension. And I think that that's important to understand that why this image looks so flat when it's clearly got shadow, it's clearly got foreground subject and background, it just comes across so flat. Because all of this malicious specularity has been beaten out of this image. And you certainly want to control that specularity, but it's not subtle. It's very heavy-handed, and that, I think, is the thing that's going to really affect the most.
I agree completely with both of you. And the thing is, when we do get a little heavy-handed with our post-production, we tend to push information beyond its capabilities, and we're losing a lot of detail in that dark suit, and we're getting a lot of muddiness, and it's a very sort of dark grey tone that's creating some issues around the edges of the frame almost. It's almost like a vignette has been placed around the image here, and it's just giving it that dirtiness that we're talking about here. A step back would have given that a little bit more room to breathe around the top of the frame here, so that crop is not so tight to the bottom of your hand and the top of his head, and we could see a little bit more of that cake and perhaps a little bit more of their bodies, because in terms of capturing the moment. This has got so much enjoyment to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's got all the feels. It's telling a story. It's connecting us with, that experience that I feel like I'm a part of the experience, which is what we want. But yeah, there's just those few areas there that would hold me back from going into that scoring range of 80 and above. But had that have been handled a little better and a little bit, and a less tighter crop, I'd definitely be around sort of 83, 84.
Do you think you could get there to silver without the change in crop? Just let's say that the highlights. Potentially. So what I'm saying is, when somebody told me a long time ago when I first started competition, I was sitting in a panel. I wasn't judging. I was sitting in the audience, and I saw an image get like a 78. And to me at the time, the image was a smasher. It was amazing.
It was 90.
It was a 90 in my heart, and I was looking at it. And then the photographer, one of my early mentors, who was sitting next to me, and he leans over and he said, "If you want an 80, put in an 85." And I thought, what a dick. That's what I thought when he said that. I was like, how dare he? But the longer I'm in this career, the more poignant that advice becomes. Although blunt, it was so accurate. If you aim for 80, you're going to get 78 just as often as you get 80. And so it's these fine details, because a lot of this is subjective. It's like how it lands on the judges, it's our world experience. Like, maybe I'm recently divorced and wedding images are just not feeling it right now. Like you bring yourself into it. You try not to be biased, but there's inherent bias in style, in experience, in mood. Images score differently. Like when it's lunchtime, like the panels are so subjective that you want to aim as high as possible. So if it feels a little bit like nitpicking, you're like, this image is incredible, why are you beating it up so bad? It's like, because you have to, if you're trophy hunting, if you're going for scores, every little thing should be addressed or at least thought about in order to get this image to its full potential in this particular arena. And so I want to reiterate that, and I know that it sounds obnoxious, but if you want to get an 80, you got to aim at 85. Don't aim at 80. Don't ever aim at 80. Don't aim for silver. Aim for gold as best as you can, and it will elevate you across the board. Okay, I think Dario, Kelly, and I think, got to bounce. Do we have Tatiana coming in? Are you coming in to judge? Look, you're not going to be as good as this panel, but you're pretty good. Danny Dawn is here. Tatiana is here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
There we go.
No, definitely not. All right. I'm a toddler. So why don't you guys come in and introduce yourselves?
Just have a seat. Yeah. Hey.
There's image making, there's art, and then there's this particular game, and there's a lot of this.
Like 15 minutes. You can do anything. We went 20 in one case, but it should be 5 in theory. But take the time that you think.
Yeah, that's what I call it trophy. The same process as we did in trophy hunting.
Okay, so let's have this conversation here live with the people.
Italian Jerry Guionis.
The Italian Jerry. Okay, so it's not exactly as you did a few days ago with Icon. With this, we want to provide a constructive critique, so we can go in and out, and so we can talk about things that actually didn't work out for some reason. And it could have been the file, the print, the editing, the posing, the lighting, something, whatever you can see. Because the point is that we want to help our folks to understand why they weren't hanged in the wall here in the first place, in the gallery, why they didn't make it through the final, and possibly next year being stronger and bolder and try for and go for it. Okay. So you are open and free. You can provide
suggestions.
You can provide anything you think is useful for the creator of the picture.
Got it.
All right.
Got it.
Good. And with that, let's move on to the next one, all right?
Work, solid professional work on really ratio. The storytelling is superb. To make it to the next level, if you look at the left bottom area, we have a bit of a contrast going on, so my eye drifts to that area right now. So if you look for the contrast lights, the background, maybe some details in the clothes, just so the eye lands really on the boy and the girl. I enjoy using lines on the jacket of the gentleman above the boy. That really helps.
Well, interesting image. I like the concept, I like the idea, a lot of sense of humor there. A lot of wedding photographers might face the same situation, asking, posing a bridal party, and the kids never listen, right? The kid is kid, the boy. That's really a very nice capture. I mean, to help this image to make it to the next level, I think maybe either there's more context to the story, or can even just for this particular picture, I might even suggest crop a little bit tighter so our focus can be immediately to the expression of the little boy. I think that's the main story over there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can either crop tighter or maybe even print bigger. Probably if you want to stream, you can see there's a monitor just off to our left, and it looks sneaky. Yeah, there's a monitor. I'll just blame this on Dario. Otherwise, this image, and I'm a huge fan of images. I love moments that are a moment in between the actual moment. Like, this is exactly what this feels like. Because my voice is in my head. All right, so I love images that are like that moment right in between. There's a photographer named Gregory Crewdson, I believe Crewdson, and he does these massive portraits, and they are always this kind of something has just either happened or is about to happen in his portraits. So I almost always love images like this where the little boy is kind of just doing his own thing. He's not really winking, but something's maybe got some sweat in his eye. But it's exactly like you said, Danny.
the story is just not connecting a little bit. This is where getting like a dozen more shots where I would just be like continuously clicking just to get a couple additional expressions, and maybe one either where he finally goes in motion and is bothered, or kind of assembles himself and then like looks up and maybe his eyes are watering from what's happening. So yeah, I think it's right there. The tones though on the gentlemen that are behind him, I think are very, very nicely done, except for I think Tatiana mentioned the bottom left leg there, that goes a little bit dark, and then the right. And then if I was to look at this image upside down, that's where it goes a little bit too dark. That's where it would pop out to me. Let's flip it over. Yeah, so now those dark forms and the additional one in the back, and it's like 3 of them now, so it's not as bad. But just bringing the one now in the upper left up and in the back upper right, that would do it for me a little bit more. But either way, the expression just is a slight miss. I don't know. Is there any saving the expression for you, or no? Like, how does the expression work for you?
I think the expression is there, but to be really standing out, we want to see more impact, more drama, right? This is a competition level. It's not it's an excellent work. I mean, the client are going to love it. But we're competing images with excellent photographer from the worldwide, so that expression has to be outstanding. Yeah, to be able to hang over there.
My compliments to the photographer because for making the boy pose like that, that's not easy to do. Look at his pose. And now as I look at it more and more, the title makes more sense to me. You know, like when you photograph children, and you like, look at the camera, and you're like, or eyes sideways or something, you know, and yeah. So in a way, it kind of ruined the shot, but here it's not ruined. It makes a story.
So, question for you guys. For the sake of the exercise, would you go for a wide match?
I would choose the black one because now the majority of the image is in the black side, right? And all we want to focus is the face expression, which is actually the brightest point of that image. So I would say a total black frame, matted frame, will be much complementary to achieve that helping people to focus, helping people to, and also help to emphasize the expression.
So the idea is to show not only different papers.
The idea is to show different papers, different mounting, cold, white, cold white, warm white, black, total black, black and white stroke, and the infinite, numbers of options out there. Because look at this gallery. Some people really came up with solutions that you wouldn't believe, you wouldn't imagine in the first place. But that's where the creativity kicks in. That's where, as you said, look at the subject. What really fits the visual impact of it. It's not always a golden rule. Black and white might fit, might not. And every single, the way I see it when I print is every single image has a voice, and it's a specific one. It's like fingertips. And there is no one-fits-all solution, in my opinion. So thank you for this exercise, guys.
Next print, please. Let me insert a Jerry Guionis joke here. I'd like to thank Melissa
stuff, none of this would be possible without
WWJD.
Is there a title for this one?
Can you repeat the title on the... Of course.
One-man show. He needs Carol and
Paradise Found.
Paradise
Found.
Paradise Found. Okay, the reason I wanted to go first with this image is this is very reminiscent. This may be taking me back a ways, but during the holidays, I think it's the Corona beer. They have this commercial, which is sort of like on a paradise island, and there's like a little house and a palm tree, and then all of a sudden the lights come on, the holiday lights come on, and I love it. So that really took me to that commercial. Love the gradation and the tone on this image as it goes from the warm to the cool up top. Initially, I don't know. The one thing where I guess I would have a question for my fellow panelists is if you like that solid black at the bottom, I would like to see just a hint of detail, like just something there where it's not pure silhouette, but maybe it works as pure.
I agree with Martin that black, it needs to go either way. Either it's very simplistic, and then the clouds, they need to be gone, and the gradient needs to be very smooth. Or if we're not going very simplistic, it needs to be, we need to see more details in those shadows. I enjoy the color palette of this image, and the composition, and the styling and the pose. The pose is where the strength is, and I want to look more at it, and then I want to see a bit more as well, and that's why more details and shadows might help this image.
Wow, very strong visual impact. Look at that, how simple the light, right? A silhouette shot, the tiny main subject with a big landscape in that frame with the vivid color. I think it's a strong impact, visual impact. I really enjoy the color, but also the maker is very, I would say, to submit such colorful image into a print competition, it's very risky, very risky. Considering the color tone graduation from cool tone blue to such a warm orange, even orange color over there. To print that perfectly, first you might need a very experienced printer, print person, Dario, like someone like Dario. It's so hard for a printer to actually achieve that full dynamic range and color range, to expand that color range without showing any color bending there. If we look at the orange and the yellow, the graduation part on the prints, we actually see a little bit color bending over there. That is very often when you print a very colorful image. Actually, I think Dario would be an expert to explain why printing that is very challenging.
Yeah, thank you for that. You're right. First of all, congratulations to the author, because this is really a bold move. Secondly, because it's very nicely captured. So yesterday, when I was considering which paper to use to print this, I went for something that is not, I think, very, let's say, popular in North America, which is the Somerset satin. So it's the one of the range available with the Canson Infinity family. It's a British super classic in terms of fine art. And why I went for this? Because the dynamic range is really impressive, even if this is a super ultra matte cotton paper. So you shouldn't be able to compete with a Barita, just to say something, that we all know. But in actual fact, it can. Now, the banding, you're right, let's say in between the orange and the yellow, that's something there going on. And that's most probably the way I saw the file, the editing. When we edit these gradients, we tend to be too aggressive with an S curve that looks like a Z more than an S. And when it goes like that, we chop down the informations and then retaining these informations in the gamut of the paper, which, let's be frank, it will be anyway smaller than your screen. There's no other way to put it. So when you edit to print, you have to keep in mind what you're doing. Because in fact, if we look at the monitor on the left, that's fine. And this incredible banking 4K, and is rendering perfectly all the information, but guess what? It went out of gamut on the paper. And that's why I encourage people to think in a different paradigm. When you go down to print, you have to be conscious about information retention. It has to be a damage control process. In this case, I did my best to try to keep everything there, but still, I should have added again the file, in order to be ready to go to a competition, a demanding one like Icon. So thank you for the question anyway.
Can you actually answer this question? I'll say the process that I follow. I may have, let's say, the PSD that I'm working on, and then I'll stamp it up to the top layer. What I like to do is, if I'm printing on whatever size paper I'm printing on, I make a new file in that size, and then I will simply copy my stamped layer to that. How would you suggest keeping the maximum, like, does that lose is there any value lost in there? Like, how do you what is the file formatting that you should have that's optimal to make sure that your colors, especially if you're pushing something like this, are well preserved, aside from just the S curve? Anything else you would do?
First and foremost, play around with the Adobe RGB color space and not with the sRGB, because the Adobe RGB is bigger and gives you more options. So when you go to answer to your questions, the best practice, not the breast, the best practice, or both, why not, is to work on your TIFF or either a PSD with all the layers there. And as you said, you can export a TIFF, flatten, or even a JPEG at the maximum quality, 300 dpi. There is no way a human eye can find a difference in between a TIFF or a JPEG, believe it or not. So, but you're right, you need to keep your master file with all the layers there, go to test with the TIFF, and make sure that either the TIFF or the JPEG are Adobe RGB. I don't recommend to use Profoto because Profoto is even bigger, but the thing is that there is no screen that reproduces the Profoto color space, which means that you are kind of slightly blind, so you're guessing. And when you start guessing, you're assuming, and never assume in life in general. So unless you're really, really expert and you know that, damn well, I do not recommend to use Profoto. Definitely Adobe though.
Just to go back to this, the only part that I'll go back on this image before we move on is, say that the pose, I wish their faces were just a schmillimeter like further apart. I think that's a Peter Hurley term. So just a little bit when I got up close, and then her pose, while everything is curved, I do feel just a teeny bit of like static, like where I can hear that they were posed. It's one of those where like a couple more repetitions, because just the way she's leaning back, I love the arm, I love the way the dress is hanging, it's I can't pinpoint it. It's somewhere her pose, it's just a smidge static. I do love that he's leaning in though, and not just like leaning his head over.
That's because how you do that scores in the competition. Scores? Yeah, just an idea, like about more or less in the area.
I probably score 78. Just quite there. Just a little bit suggestion. Just break the right angle, break the main subjects. Don't connect them together. I mean the face part. For silhouette shot, we want us. There's no way we can see the expression. The only thing we see is shape. We want to see people's shape, at least over there. Right? If two faces connected together, it just damages the shape over there. 'Cause for silhouette, we're looking for the very final detail. Everything, nothing else to be judged. Just on that shape, body shape. It's all about body shape.
Very good point. Very good point.
77. And I just want to say I so enjoy him, having his food on his toes. So independent about it, I love it.
Before you go with your score, just saying that 78, we all should be proud of a 78. It means solid professional practice. That's what you should deliver day in, day out. So it's a badge of honor. It's not like a missed opportunity whatsoever.
That's amazing.
Man, I've got hundreds of 78. I should be extra proud. So I would be the oddball out, and I'd probably score this 80, maybe 81. And I would agree with my fellow judges for the 77 and 78. I would absolutely see that. The reason I would go up one more category personally in my score is because, to me, this feels a little bit more original in terms of what I would see on an average wedding, and especially the bold choice with the color. So while I'm very big on noticing the flaws, and I pointed out, I think a couple, we all agree on those, I would sort of reward the maker for that little bit of something that I haven't seen before. And while 80 or 81 isn't going to be a category winner, what it does show is the folks who are seeing those images and what they can be capable of doing. It doesn't just have to be, oh, let's go in front of this one fountain and we'll do that, or just backlight on the dance floor, because a lot of silhouette shots are put a couple out in the forest, we put a strobe behind them, and voila, we have a wedding day photo. This is just using natural light to make the silhouette, and so I would reward that by going up one more category.
Let's go over the next one.
Michelle Celentano's here. She would make perfect for being your print handler for the next 4 hours. Icon volunteer, yeah, you got the ribbon. Icon volunteer. Dario, do you always want us to give a score, or is it just when you ask to give a rough estimate of the score? Okay.
No, but
I'll start with this one real quick because I've done numerous engagement sessions at arcades, and I always, part of me loves doing them because it's so fun going into an arcade. It's also sometimes disturbing to see how many grown adults are there at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Don't you work? Why is this place so packed? And the difficulty of shooting in an arcade, they're almost always, at least the ones around Chicago where I've shot, are always very, very dark. And placing your strobe in the right spot to get the right shot is insanely difficult without it starting to spill onto the various elements of the machines themselves. So I'll compliment the maker on the fact that the faces look quite soft in their exposure. That is not easy to achieve in some of the conditions. It's like there's drinks there, there's sticky floors. It's a very difficult location to shoot and expose.
One believe it about the title? Yes.
Space Invaders is the title? I wonder if that's their names. That would be cool if his name is Russ and her name is Kev.
Well, I was wondering how much is the score this image actually get in the competition? Because to me, I mean, I love it. the idea, the concept of right, it's unique, it's different. It's not an everyday engagement session we do, or it has concept. It has a unique background, and also shooting, as Michael mentioned, shooting in that background is tough. The technical difficulty is there. To be able, it's super dark, and then you're adding an extra light, and that light to highlight the couple, and the couple is perfectly posed, and the emotion is there, the expression is there, they're connected, and the light control is perfect, there's no light spill, and then the light on the face is very soft, very complimentary. Also, I really like the composition there. It's like a movie poster. It's like a new movie coming out, and in the movie theater you see a poster like that. To me, this is very storytelling, very different. I love it. I was for this above 80 for sure.
I enjoy the story, the symmetry that we offer capture. I would want to see a bit different angle maybe. You see, they're connected, almost dead center. And that center composition, it has its place, but it needs to be supported by everything else. So I would want them to decide what the story is about. Is it about more of the where they are, or it's about their connection? And choose accordingly. So with a bit different composition, placing them maybe in lower thirds or upper thirds, depending on the story you're choosing, that would make more impact. I would also want to point light direction, and I do appreciate the difficulty of lighting in that setting. But you see, we have a lot of highlights under their cheeks, and if you would compare the brightness of the foreheads and under the cheeks, it's all light below. So maybe higher it's possible to place the light.
Yeah, I just want to add a few cents how to make this image stronger to achieve another level. It's the print competition. We're looking at skin tone color. So when we're shooting in a environment that has strong color influence, or the environment color over there, be careful in your post editing. So to separate the skin tone from the background color, we see a lot of red on those seats on the screen. Third, the numbers, all those are affecting the skin tone. So on the prints, the skin tone has that color effects on that face. So make sure you mute that color, take off the actual red on people's face. That can actually separate the main subject from the environment to actually make it stand out more.
That's an amazing comment. Thank you for that, Danny. Because, for instance, in painting, it's a known thing how colors interfere one with one another. Sometimes in a complementary way, so sometimes they are enhancing the effect, but sometimes it's like more, like as you said, like an interference, like a pollution. And particularly if you shoot scenes and environments where there are a lot of glossy specular surfaces, it's inevitably happen because the light is bouncing back from the red glossy seats back to their cheeks and stuff, and you're right, it should have been muted a little bit. Now, guess what? I printed on a Barita Prestige, which is a super, I would say the widest, if not wildest, gamut possible, but it shows everything. And in this case, it showed let's say the magenta, overcast on the skin. And you correctly picked up on that immediately. And like I said, painting-wise, that's something that we think, or actually it's a second nature. When we are painting, we know that this color close to the other color, not gonna work. And when you go in these situations, yeah, that's definitely a problem. So spot on, very spot on. Thank you.
I'll add for like the final sort of the classic feedback of fix to fix. They have a connection in their faces, but if the three of us judges we were embracing, we'd probably start reaching for each other. I would see a hand start doing it. I see one hand down low, but it's so dark down there that it feels almost like there's just a random hand placed in there. This is one of those spots where a hand makes all the difference, maybe going for someone's face. That can also help because it almost looks like he's just part of the seat or like a machine because you don't really see his body. She breaks it a little bit with her shoulder. And then final point, a kiss of fill from the front, which is, again, not easy to do because you almost need to push it like from a softbox so that you don't get hard shadows, just to fill in the lower portion where you've got some deeper shadows and start losing it. But those tweaks kind of there, I think would take it up also that additional notch. This is probably where I'd be a little bit opposite of normal. I'd probably be at 78. But I also know, because I've shot stuff like this, I know that mine sit 70 ops. This probably beats most of my lighting and faces in terms of being believable. I might be more forgiving on the reds. The only reason I'll say that is because as being a big movie fan, when I see characters speaking somewhere and then they're in the bar and one guy's face is green or the girl's face is blue, I believe it when it's just part of the atmosphere. So I would forgive for that, but I also wouldn't fault a judge for taking it down.
How about the crop, guys? It's quite almost a letterbox, which is kind of unusual.
I think that crop and the placement, I think Tatiana mentioned earlier, like maybe move them up or down, but I know that what's going to happen is you're going to start bumping into other things that have nothing to do with the image and start overcomplicating it and giving you a bad background. So I think for what it is, I think the maker worked in the element that was provided to them.
All right.
Ooh.
Wow, love the expression. The expression says everything. I love it. The strong visual impact, strong emotion captured over there. I enjoy it. The thing is, I wanna see this image pretty bigger. I don't know what other views. But
Like this?
Yeah, exactly. If we look at we look at the screen, why it's in a big frame. The impact is different. Once we are focusing on the image expression, then we want to see things bigger because our eyes can see the expression more easily instead of getting really close to enlarge that expression. So I would say for playing bigger, once you want us to look at the expression, or then you have to pop tighter. But then the distance between the two main subjects is there. So I understand there's no way to crop tighter. So the only thing why I recommend pretty bigger.
I really enjoy the expression and that connection. I love the composition. If you would want to change it, maybe crop a little bit less, but I think it's really on point with composition. To make it to next level, think about small details. So ask yourself, if you would paint it, what would you paint? For example, their background, love the vertical lines. It adds rhythm to the image. But that horizontal line, right from the groom, it kind of breaks that rhythm. Personally, I would remove it. So it's just not attracts attention because my eyes kind of goes to that line and then away from the screen because that horizontal line becomes very strong leading line and it leads not in the right direction.
I would be, I'll just give my score. This would be a solid 77 for me all day, every day. And I mean that as a compliment because first look shots, which I'm assuming that this is photojournalism, first look wedding day. Don't know, have you shot any weddings, Tatiana? Have you ever done wedding photography? No. A couple times, yeah. So, but Danny, we've done our fair share. So I've done shots like this hundreds of times. Not easy, right? Because even though you know where they're going to do it, you can't control them. And they turn this way and they're but just when one of them has the expression, the other one doesn't yet have the expression, and they switch expressions. I think you guys just do it exactly how I want. So first off, not easy to do this because I believe that this is photojournalistic in nature. I'll go with that. Tatiana's totally correct about the horizontal line. But the real issue as to why I be 77 on this is just because this is bread and butter wedding. This is high quality, professional grade work. And I mean that very, very high quality professional work. The darks, I'm guessing that wall might have been a different color, red, something like that, and we decided to take it. Right, everything is done perfectly, but some images, simply because they are daily staples for us as wedding photographers, they're going to just peak out. I don't know if I should say that, right? Because we always want to say, well, we'll take it to the next category. The reality is that if it was some wild expression, if you see the groom and he's like starts passing out. In fact, there was a photojournalistic shot years ago when WPPI was running a competition where you can see the groom, his eyes are crossing as they're cutting the cake. And it's not that we haven't shot hundreds of cake cutting photos, but just that one expression is what elevated that one. So the moment is sweet, everything is great here, but I think it would be stuck at 77. But it also depends on the competition. That's speaking here at WPPI and Icon is where it would be. Whereas if we went to maybe a small county fair, local state, something like that, then it may do very well. So I think the audience of the competition is where the image would change in its impact and scoring.
Also, just want to add one comment on the post-processing of this image. I understand this might be photojournalistic category, wedding day photojournalistic. We're not allowed to do a lot of clone or changing the background or anything, but just look at the screen. To me, my impression is it's a little bit flat. I want to see more contrast there. I want to see a little bit more. I want the black to be a little bit deeper black. I want the white to be a little bit stronger white. That's the one I'm looking at. I want to see the whole full range of the tonal range. Instead, I think now compress the tonal range too narrow. To me, if we really comparing, trying to find the brightest spot in the picture, it's on the flower, it's on the bouquet, which I actually should be seeing their face like to see that part. So I want to see. I would just be more bold, try a little bit more contrasting to give that strong visual impact over there. Because once we turn into black and white, there's no color influence over there. Then we're looking at the contrast became the first priority when we judge the depths of the image.
For me, this image is almost there. Almost, but not quite. And that not quite, it's really small things, but that's what makes the difference between solid professional work and silver. So I already talked about that horizontal line, but let's talk about styling, posing. The groom, I wouldn't change anything. The bride, look at that veil. Maybe flip of the veil, maybe toward grooms, not away from him, might help. Because now it just goes down, creating another leading line. And lighting. So we see lighting pretty even. So her dress, some parts of it, like next to the shoulder, a bit brighter than the rest of the image. So you kind of landing on her back because of the, naturally wedding dress, brighter. But this is something that can be either controlled with choice of different lighting or in post.
See his cuff of his shirt too.
Okay, guys, you got
Yeah.
distracted talking with Sarah.
I'll take Tony's spot here.
Danny, how would you break this image down? Why don't you unpack this for us?
Can you tell us about the tonality?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, are you swapping out?
Oh, I'm just coming in for a bit.
No pressure.
Could you tell us about the shrimps on the bobby?
What? That's all crap.
Tony, I'm going to
It's
start
Bonza.
speaking a Russian accent that you don't understand, and then make you lean in and say, "What was that again?"
If I lean in, it's because I'm older.
Have a ripper.
Have a rich?
A ripper Christmas.
A ripper Christmas. Good on you, mate.
Tony, first impressions.
First impressions, good question. I like the way you asked that. We should use that. When I first look at this, the pattern, the sort of shapes that are on there is the first thing that grabs my attention, and that grabs an intrigue because my brain starts to see shapes that it recognises. So we're going to start again. As a rehearsal, how do we go? Should we do it the same way or different?
It's tilted. It's the wrong way.
So the other thing I had an impression of, it didn't feel like it was the right way around. So that makes more sense.
Oh, it does make more sense.
I like it the other way.
I kind of liked it the other way too.
So when something like this comes around and you've got these distinct sort of patterns, your brain tries to make sense of patterns and looks for familiarity. And so I start to see what looks like bushes of wheat on the bottom now and the figures at the top. And of course then as you start to recognise the symbols, your brain's thinking, well, what do those symbols mean? What do they connect with? And this looks like it has a religious connotation, I suppose, out of a church, maybe a stained glass window. And of course, in that journey, which the intrigue or the curiosity that's aroused keeps you involved with the picture, and then you discover that beautiful little face that's peeking out from behind and adding a sort of a level of brevity or lightness, a little bit of humour into what otherwise would be a maybe not solemn, but something that could be a polarising subject. So the image is interesting, is what I'm trying to say. And then I'd look at it, do I feel like there could be some improvements or something like that? I could go on about that, but since I'm doing first impressions, I'm going to ask you to break it down.
Dario, I have an amazing suggestion. You just get Tony, Jerry, and then you throw Melissa in because she's never sat on a panel. You get the three of them to go for like 3-4 hours straight, and after every image, they take some sort of sip of, like, say, alcohol if they consume it, and then you watch the critiques just evolve. Because like right now, following that, it's like I could do it if he had maybe 4 or 5 drinks. Then I'd feel confident in what I'll say. Just a future suggestion. Okay, I think to echo off of the patterns, I love that I didn't immediately see the faces up top. It took me a second to get to them, and I love them. What I adore, and I'm one of those weird photographers that I like the oddities. When a maker does something weird, I resonate with that and sometimes have to pull panels with me. I love the fact that the subject's expression is this kind of, it's not smiling and just looking at the camera, which wouldn't do it for me, but I love the fact that it's almost trying to blend in. Like if you're the photographer and you say, do your best to do one of those faces, and the child's like, okay, and then just leans in and tries to do something, and the fact that it kind of plays with that. Really, to start elevating this image up a little bit more, it is just a little bit flat. I love the complexity of the patterns. Unfortunately, everything, like all of those lines are just flat. Seeing a little bit more contrast with perhaps some If you can't control the ambient light, you could start bringing in dodging and burning to do that, and then to get the subject to really pop a little bit more, because the final lines of where the subject's face is, I do end up right there, and then curved and framed beautifully at the bottom by, are they arrows, feathers? Something at the bottom.
They're wheat.
Oh, wheat bushes. Bushels. Okay, wheat bushels, not arrows. I couldn't get arrows yesterday, so can't get wheat bushels today. Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoy the image a lot because of the story, because that story just wants you to read it, and we just need everything else to support the story. Actually, when the image was horizontal, my first impression was like, oh, I love the placement of the child. Love it. It's vertical though, since, probably depends on culture. Here, most people read left to right. And if that child would be placed on the left, and it seems like, that would support the story better. On the right, I see the child, my, face slides away from the frame, and then I kind of getting up and looking at that highlight kind of a little bit lower than the middle of the image on the right side. Do you see it? It's not clear. It's someone else's head or something else. I'm not sure. You guys see it? The middle of the image on the right side, kind of roundish object. Yes, and that reflection kind of pulls my eye away from the face of the child. So this is something, yes, that would make more sense to me. I'm saying that it's a lot of, what works with the image, foundation is there. I did clean up in post. Look at the areas of contrast. The contrast that is not intentional, because that contrast is supposed to pull our eyes away. Actually, first we look at the contrasty area, then the bright areas, and that what dictates how we read the image. But all of that aside, upload your imagination and your vision and the way you want to tell the story.
I want to commend the author because, the first thing first that I notice in this picture is the innocence of a child, as opposed as the Last Supper represented in the elements, in the architectural elements on the glass. And we can see there is one of the apostles saying, "It wasn't me." The other one with the coins in his hand, and you know that that's the bad guy. It was me, actually. Let's do this, exactly. So we see Judas, we see the other one going defensive. No, it wasn't me. And then we have this angel, this innocent creature there, not even aware, clearly, of the meaning of the whole thing. So I think that was, kind of clever by the author to capture this contrast in between the environment, the context, and the child there. With all the respect, you just analyze all the other technical aspects that work or didn't work or could have worked better. But to me, there was something striking.
I wonder if this would work better if it was printed down a little, and then a bit of contrast added. So, because the area that sits just here between those little sections of red light, there's not enough differentiation between that, so it becomes a large area that competes with the face. If you look at the face, it's got a bit of hair running across it. So if we darken the whole image down and you start to see the effect over here, pull it down and bring the face up, maybe keep the dress lighter than the face, then I think you can get that message a little more stronger. Just addressing where she is. I see what happens when we flip it, but I often, when I'm judging, I'll often look and say, look, yes, you could choose to do it this way, but I'm going to assume deliberate intent. If it's entered in a competition, I like to assume deliberate intent, even if it was a complete fluke. So if it's a deliberate intention, why? And we've got all the wise men or the apostles, wise men is like you, and you got more wisdom than me because you got more beard. I'm struggling, but they're all looking one way, and they're all interested in something. There's something back in the past, but she's not coming upright. She's coming in from the side, and it's got that impish cheekiness about it. And I could draw all sorts of narratives. The church needs to reconnect with children. You could take that same picture and apply it to other more darker themes around children. There's so many things you could do. But taking the picture down, darkening it off, and allowing her to shine, I think is probably what I would choose to do.
So I have a question for you. You said that you assume that everything is deliberate, and oftentimes I've had makers come up to me and say afterwards, I didn't even see that. And what would you say to the folks that say to you, it wasn't, I just didn't see it until you pointed it out? How do I know to do this next time?
That's a good question. So there's the hat of the judge, and as a judge, I assume intent. So I don't look at it and go, oh, they got it wrong. I go, if they did do it wrong, but they did it deliberately, why did they break the rules? What are they trying to do or say by doing it that way? Because I know what it would mean, or the narrative I might derive if they did it the way everyone would expect. So why did they do it this way? What's the difference? Having said that, then it depends on the intention of the maker. If the intention is to win an award or to gain favour, then you might say, what would the majority of people expect or want from this picture? That's strategy. As an artist, it's a different approach. An artist says, here's what I want to say, and I don't care if 1 million people get it or one person gets it. This is what I'm going to say, and this is how I'm going to say it. Then as an artist who chooses to step into the commercial side of art, you then say, am I effective in getting the message across? And if I'm not, how do I have to augment what I'm doing with my work to somehow keep the authenticity of my message, but also attract the commercial profit or the commercial success I'm looking for. So it does come back to what's the intention.
Would you just have a network of...
Well, can you say it into the mic?
Would I have a network of people I trust was the question? Absolutely. But it's a network that's not just made up of people who are experienced. And I made a comment during the judging about how in the Icon International Photography Awards process, judging the finals, we're looking at what makes an award winner, why is it a finalist? And the first judge says, what were you aware of, or what's your first impressions? What impacts you most at the beginning? Well, if you go to a group of experienced people who judge a lot, they'll be almost conditioned. It's like photographing models for a family portrait. They slip into model mode and you somehow got to get underneath the mask and get the real person that mum wants to see. So you also want to have a part of that circle of trusted people who can just look at it and say, well, here's what I see first, or that stood out for me, and not have a real knowledge of the process of judging it. I think that gives you, because the very first impact, the very first second you look at it, you're not a photographer, you're just someone with eyes. And then the photographer kicks in and starts to apply the rules. Does that make sense?
So now, after we were saying about, up, guys up top looking left, and yes, past, and the child, it's easier to see the story. And I love the child on diagonal that really clashes with up top, and it helps to tell the story. And I think the next level would be to remove everything that is in the way of reading that story. And I also want to mention that we need to be very careful when we're placing lighter something, highlights, next to the crop. What we are saying that our eye read left to right. So with left, if you would see on the left, right? Notice how your eye drifts. It drifts toward kind of the middle of the image, right? With this, with the work itself, the hand creates a leading line, and that line really kind of helps eye to slide away from the frame. So what I'm saying is the story is here, and foundation is there. Just need to be, more meticulous about post-production. And intention.
Is this panel swap now? I'm on the 2. No, I'm on the 2, but so are you out? Who's in? Is it 2? Or they're just hanging out?
I'm just a great person because I was a bit hard to
You're just a bloke.
I said, I would just, if it's
He's just a crasher.
something for an hour and then make it up a bit.
Just a bloke. Having a lazy Arvo.
Sorry?
Having a lazy Arvo. Words I never heard before I went to Australia.
Call him every year. It goes up a lot more. If he doesn't answer his phone one day, that signature is going to be worth a lot more money. You ever heard of Tom Rouse? Very, very, very talented. I mean, now he's sort of retired from work, but he used to do just this line stuff. So, yeah, I get calls from clients every once in a while. Oh, hey, Tom. It's great to see you. He's very that is all hand painted. What's that? He drew he taught a workshop. I sat for about 10 minutes and I just closed my eyes. Just sat back and watched some of this is
Sir William. Yes. See how much more expensive that sounds?
Sir William, welcome to the panel. Untitled.
It's just banter. It's not
It's just a conversation about
you want to tell me you're assuming that they may not Yeah, I'll kick it off. For weddings, one thing that I would expect is almost like a vintage style bicycle, and I love that this breaks that motif of like we're not trying to make something whimsical, but we're just taking, hey, I brought my bike on the wedding day, or it's in the back of my truck. Can we get a shot on this? And so I love the fact that this is just taking what I believe is a piece of the groom and making this a photo for him. I think this is more of a shot. Many wedding photos I feel are for the bride. I believe that this one's for the groom. And if this was me, I would love it because I happen to be a bicycle rider as well. I like the paper choice, but I know that wasn't the paper. That was somebody off to my left here. And I enjoyed the texture. Yes, thank you, Dario. So, a couple things.
Somerset watercolor.
Somerset watercolor paper. This is all Canson.
Canson.
Canson. American, it's Canson. So, just two notes of what we, well, three, one, and I'll just gloss over them, but then let everybody else cover them. Love the depth of field too, the way that the trees go really cleanly right in the background. The location, you know, we kind of have a mountain bike. I might push it off more into something more naturey so that I'm not under the road, but I get that maybe for the bride's sake. The other is the toss of the dress feels a little bit. I can almost see that somebody was there and then quickly backed out, and I like. It would be lovely to have a little bit more wave to it. And then the third point briefly that I'll say is just a little bit of flatness in those negative points. But I really love this concept. I think this is quite.
I want to commend the maker on the use of a long rectangle for this composition. Because if you look at the notional space, and when we say notional space, essentially it's the invisible box that your subject is in. So if you put an invisible box around the bride and the groom, it's this long, narrow rectangle. Also, her train is flowing and it has a long, narrow look to it. So a square crop for the entire composition doesn't read and wouldn't work as well as this longer rectangle. So the maker was cognizant enough to understand these kind of underlying design principles and take that into consideration when they're using their choice of prop for the rectangle. A rectangle doesn't always have to be 4 by 6, it doesn't have to be arbitrary, and it can really relate to the subject matter.
Yeah, I think everything that's been said is on point. I don't have anything to sort of disagree with that. I think I feel like a good argument sometimes. And I do agree there's a hint of flatness to it, but I don't think that's in the actual painting. I think in editing sometimes we can leave ourselves short because we do a lot of global adjustment for time. Some people seem to be reluctant to go into specific areas. As a landscape fan photographer these days, that's a huge tool to use, is going in and work out which parts of the image is really coming forward and which parts of the image you'd like to see recede or stay where they are. And often you use things such as saturation or contrast, local area contrast particularly. And I think this image would benefit in the actual editing, maybe on the side of the dress, give the dress a little bit more dimensionality, which might reduce the impact of that. And you could even, depending on if it's in photojournalism or something where you can't do a lot of adjustment, you could add blur on the dress. But I do agree with you, it looks a little static. So it's like almost, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost a paradox because it's like it's flowing, but then it looks like it's invisible fishing line over there. I asked again, what are the decisions made and what would be the deliberate intent, the bike going across the road, if that's done for a reason other than to keep the bride's boots dry. What would be the difference if he was going down the road? I thought maybe that's to sort of say he's not going to go, he's not going to get away from her. It was interesting you said it's for the groom, and I kind of feel like it could also be for the bride that she's got him on a tight leash. So depends on the whimsy. I think there's no doubt it's a whimsical one, and we'll derive different meaning from it. Expression-wise, I think the expression is pretty strong. The cropping, I agree with William, Sylvain, that the cropping really that shape works really well. However, it's just bordering on uncomfortable at the bottom. I'm not saying there's not enough space, but I'd like to have seen it with a little bit more space, just to breathe a little bit. Because at the moment I just feel like it's sitting too low for me. And then I'd play around with a little bit more space on the left because of the angle that her head is actually slightly leaving a bit more negative space behind her than there is in front of him. And I'm wondering if that makes it feel tight for me. Having said that, maybe that's the constriction feel that we're supposed to get out of this picture. So, I mean, we could talk about this one for a long time, and it really becomes more and more subjective because there's not a lot of objective points that you can say that could be done better.
I'll add one point that many folks wouldn't think about, but again, as somebody who spends 5 or 6 days a week on a bicycle, I'm going to assume that there wasn't an assistant holding him up and that he puts his foot down and quickly puts it up for the shot. So you've got to make 2 things happen: him balancing himself as well as her. And Tony, the one place where I'll strongly disagree with you in saying that the shot might be for her and keeping him on a leash, quantity of bicycles that you begin accumulating after you have one. There's the rule in cycling of N+1. Whenever, how many bicycles should I have?
One
and
more.
I told myself, when I got my first one, I was like, this is all I need. But then I got a second one because that second one's a little different. But then the first one became my trainer bike. The second one then got promoted. And then the third one came promoted. I now have about 6, but we'll skip the other few. And so, as a cyclist, that's why I would say for him to just be lucky enough to have the bike, and they're not cheap, as you can say. So that's why I would say it's better to say that kind of only point to add, it would be lovely, but also difficult to why I brought up the balancing. If right now he's looking straight ahead and not yet they're trying to make this image, if there was some way possible where he's looking back and making some kind of face to bring in a little bit more animation of his face. He is smiling, I like it, it's kind of believable, but I also feel like he's working a little bit to make sure that he doesn't fall. That would be wonderful. Her face is okay, kind of like, but him, so he needs to grow that again.
I do. Just add compliments to the making sure that there's some of that shadow tree line behind the heads, they're not cutting through the heads. The heads are sticking out in the sky, so it has to stand out a bit better. So I think some of those obvious decisions that we've done really well. So I have a bike with fat tyres. No, it's a road bike. Stirrups, cleats.
So you ride a lot?
No, I used to. Right.
Road?
No, just road bike.
First impressions.
My first impression here, I'm going to continue off of what I said for the last image. There's a conscious decision, a different conscious decision, to use a different crop here. And I think a square crop works well here. Because again, I'm going to go back to the notional space of your subject, which roughly kind of falls into a square. And then you have this lovely heart pattern that's random in the foliage, which also is kind of moving into a square. And then so a square crop of the entire image really makes sense. I appreciate the makers, whether it's natural or artificial rim light, but there's just a little bit of light behind them, which is creating just a bit of separation from the background. If I'm going to be really picky, I would say for the sake of flattering, although this is a really cute moment, but really kind of splitting hairs here. For the sake of flattering her, if his right hand was not there, covering up the most narrow part of her waist, it could create an uphill illusion of the hand there to make her look a little heavier than she is. This is really kind of micromanaging, but the affection is there, which is nice. Also, her arm is kind of brought into her body, and if this was a truly photojournalistic moment, I wouldn't be saying this, but I think this is pretty clearly a portrait designed and directed in a photojournalistic way. So because of that, you can get more refined. It is easier to flatter people. So her right arm being brought away from the body, just so it's not pushed up against her body, would be a little more flattering. She wouldn't feel as tense. And his left hand making some connection with her would be nice as well.
There's, the part that I love the most about this is the little heart that is kind of being made around them with the tree. And it's like right at the top of her head is the indent of the heart, and then it kind of clicks out and reconnects at the bottom. I don't know if anybody sees that, or that's just my imagination.
Oh, it's there.
So really, really love that. I don't know if they saw this or if they later saw it, but that's kind of neat. I'll make one main point. I think quite a bit on closing has been covered, but and I said this on the Imagen panel a couple times. And that is hearing the photographer's voice, or hearing the photographer speak. I can hear the photographer talking in the shot. It's like, okay, now put your hand on his chin. Now you guys are going to kiss each other, because I can hear that they are being directed instead of, here's what you guys are going to do. You're going to however you want. Put your fingers up on his chin, and I want you guys to give each other a kiss. And the first kiss is going to be like this. It's going to feel a little bit static. His arm's there. Then the response is going to be, what are you doing, Melissa? Maybe pull her in a little bit. So how about, you seem very happy that she's kissing you. How about I step in? I'll do it for you first. I'll show you how it's done. And then, even though I'm saying these things right as they're doing it, then they start cracking up. And these little moments that happen, and yes, am I making it happen a little bit? Fine. But years down the road, they're not going to remember that I made some stupid joke about him kissing her and me wanting to do it to show him how to do it. They're going to see a moment that feels a little bit more believable, and you're not going to hear the posing direction that's going on. We have non-actors, non-models, and we have to make them look like actors and models. And I found the easiest way to do it is
Am I not feminine enough for you? Am I not feminine enough for you?
Nope.
she doesn't even see it. She has to put her glasses on.
I can see it.
I'm just going to, while she's getting ready, reassure Michael that they will remember the comedy of the moment, and they'll be telling that story about how you wanted to step in and kiss him and show her how to do it.
Well played, Tony.
Yeah, first impressions, I'm actually really loving this sort of slightly off-center symmetry, but it works in the shape of this heart that they're sort of located in. I didn't hear everyone's comments yet. I was sort of in the periphery, but what I love is the color palette works really well. I think for me, I'm wondering if the fence might be a bit of a distraction. For some reason, my eyes keep going to there, and obviously I'm not sure if this was an image of opportunity or if they were obviously placed there deliberately because of the shape of the foliage. But I'm wondering if the gate is sort of pulling too much attention. But one could also argue that the gate is sort of framing that hand beautifully that's on her lower back, which is also a really nice moment. I did hear a comment about her elbow sort of being a little bit kind of jammed into her body, and I do agree with that. I think that could come out a little bit. But I actually don't mind the placement of the gentleman's arm. I was trying to see if he's leaning on the fence, but I think that actually looks quite nice. Tonality is good. I think the vignetting sort of that happens on the sort of periphery of the image really draws you back into the image, and I think the lighting is quite spectacular. Yes. So the question is that hand placement in, the middle of her back working, or is it working against the image? I think you could look at it either way. I would love to have seen him sort of pull her in a little closer, which would sort of enable this little beautiful S-curve to happen. It's there, but I think we could have pushed it a little bit. So sometimes if you pull them in a little bit more, you get that closeness, that intimacy, and really helps flatter her figure. And another thing you could do is just angle her hips slightly differently, pull her left hip forward, her right hip just slightly back to have her really leaning into that S-curve. Does that answer the question? But I think the placement of the hand as it is really nice. It just needs to be nuanced just that little bit. And what I would love to see, if I were posing this couple, I would have him really snuggle in, bring her in just that little bit closer, which would just give us that little S-curve coming down to the hip, giving her a more flattering shape.
Very often, wedding photography, it's all nice and fun, but most of the couples are not comfortable posing, right? And the more that we are trying to direct them, the more they come with their mood board from Instagram, Pinterest, whatever. I want to be like this. But then they're stiff, they are embarrassed, they are shy, and it's not their job, it's ours. So with a few tips, you can make almost anyone comfortable, right? And sometimes I've noticed grooms being a little bit like over the top in grabbing the bride, which is not really, I think, not really complimentary for either the portraits or the lady. So yeah, that's why I was insisting on that, because it's one of the most common situations where he's grabbing her and usually they don't get it right. So it's all on the main side, right? Yeah, and I tell you what, because she's kind of still like this, she's coming into the thing,
sure.
and still this case, all of a sudden he's not seeing it coming. Right? That's the story that I'm seeing. And so if he wasn't holding her, it would have been like, "Hey, darling," and then still in the case, and it would have been in a way sweeter, in my opinion. More authentic, yeah, more organic, yeah, definitely. Good comments. Thank you so much.
Tony didn't say anything.
The fact that we have like 3.5 words
We have
2 square meters.
17 judges in 5 square feet.
We all can't stay with.
Michael, you're back. Tony's out.
I like bossing you around. It was fun.
So, Tony, can I get some first impressions here?
Pretty minimalist photo. Not much there.
It's all about the heart. Did they just get Dario's signature?
It's the stamps on the thing.
Entered in a contest.
This is like almost sitting at the
It's full service here in the judging.
I've noticed that.
Okay, are we starting?
Love you. Bye. Bye.
All right, this is a lovely moment captured by the maker, and I think the maker did a good job of photographing from a point of view, and of course in a car, you don't really have a lot of room to move around. It can be very tricky. I've been in party buses and limos where the driver is driving rather fast, and it can be kind of bumpy, and it can be kind of tricky, very difficult to shoot in this environment. I think it was a conscious effort to choose black and white, not just because it's a nice moment, and photojournalism oftentimes is in black and white, but oftentimes in these situations without any kind of flash, you're going to have a heck of a time with trying to balance the white balance, because you're going to have artificial light sources in here, you're going to have natural light coming through the window, so a good decision on the maker to make it black and white, again, not just for the photojournalism's sake, but for the sake of not having to deal with the white balance issues. If I'm going to get really picky, a little lean to the left by the maker would have allowed the woman's face on the right, her expression to be seen even more. Again, this is not a situation where you're outside and you can walk around and take your time. They might not have been able to move much at all. And I'm sure the couple would very much appreciate this. One thing that the maker could change in post-production is the very high area of contrast of white and black right behind the bride's head, because it's right next to her head. It's very distracting, and it can kind of take you out of her expression just a bit. But overall, a really nice moment captured.
Yeah, I think there's so much beautiful energy and joy coming from this image that it's hard not to just sort of smile when you see it. I agree with all of the comments that you've made. I think I would love to see a slightly different angle almost, because you've got these sort of leading lines from on screen is the limo or bus, but it looks like a limo to me. So I wondered if maybe a way to elevate this image would be to pitch it sort of slightly lower and let these leading lines kind of take a little bit more attention. I also, I agree about this, the lady on the right, I would like to pull this out a little bit more so we see what's happening there, because my eyes do keep going to this, blurry kind of assuming the face on the side, so I would actually like to see what that moment was and maybe incorporate a little bit more of that person. But I do agree, you've got that sort of black and white chunk right by her head that is causing a little bit of distraction. I certainly, I don't think it's, I don't think it's dragging the image down per se, but as a choice, I might have either darkened down or just softened that white a little. There's also just a small white on her left cheek that I probably would have touched up just because it's not necessarily just to get her face glowing and perfect just the way it is without it.
I think for whatever reason, and I only did this a couple times, the limo or the bus is the one time where you can put on any lens that you want. You got a lens baby, you have a fisheye lens, you have a champagne bottle, anything you want there because it's such a difficult transition that you need to that. And it's so props to the maker just for getting, even with the flaws, just to get this exposure because half the time I try to bounce it, that doesn't work, it's too hot, so you end up doing the TTL going straight forward, and the background falls out. This is one of those where it's already a little broken, so just break it more maybe by going to the bed. You have to, if not, you get it. The only real issue I had, I think you guys are wrong, the only thing I'll really add is that the expressions just fall off. Right in the room, they look wonderful, it's genuine, it's right in there. The gentleman is just to the left, I'm assuming it's right, but the gentleman just to the left there, also smiling, I don't know if it falls off a little bit, and now the guy who's closest to the camera is really just sort of having a conversation with the camera. Whereas when you see the images that are in the active gallery and they're a large group, the expressions that everybody's doing something, it's like truly caught this genuine organic moment of your expression being very equally subject to the folks that are so I mean, again, this is probably for what it is, I think it's yeah, we're good. Yeah, I mean, the moments that we dream of. What I love about photography is that when I first started coming to photography is that maybe Jerry Dionis was one of the first, but then many other photographers I've heard speak about this. They would prime sometimes these moments, and even though you've got this amazing expression, I love that behind the scenes, and I've done this myself. I've literally just ripped off the people that I've heard, and I'll say to the dad, like, are you ready to see your baby girl for the last time before you walk her down the aisle? And I especially do that when they're like, oh, my dad's totally gonna cry. I'm like, well, let me see if I can ramp it up a little bit. So I don't know if the maker did it or not, and it doesn't really matter. But the point is that you've got the expressions that are happening. I love that they're both hitting the moment. It looks like she's trying to keep it together because the makeup was not cheap. It took quite a while to do, and he just walks out, and I love this expression. I'll say that when we have this first look with the father-daughter, the background. Sometimes they'll say, this is where I want to do it. I don't know that this is the location necessarily, and maybe this was the best location that the photographer had. But this is where I tried to put in a little bit of thought in terms of what will make it the cleanest story and memories for them. Now, in terms of memories, it will be obvious to them that this is somebody's home or wherever they're getting ready. From a photographic competition perspective, it is starting to busy up a little bit. You've got the light switches, the little nook that is just to the right of the father, that is like a little vertical line. So it is just starting to get a little bit busy for me, but you know, I do adore the expressions. I would be right there between the 79 and 80 category just because their expressions are solid, pushing 85. The rest of the image is pulling it down, so I'd have to see where I would land.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything that you said. This is obviously a moment of opportunity. It's not something that can truly be directed or nuanced because these two people are sharing a really precious moment, and it would seem strange to be like, hey, can we jump back on the thing? So, you know, can I shift you to the left? Yeah, cry more. You know. Go to the left, go to the right. So obviously in these moments, as a photographer, we have to make split decisions about what's the best way to capture this moment, because A, we don't know how long it's going to last, and B, obviously, you know, this is where they are and this is what we have. So I agree that, you know, it's obviously not an optimal background for them, but what I might have sort of looked into is maybe a different depth of field, just so that that background is just blending away just a little bit from them. I also might have, I'm a big fan of go high, go low, go near, go far. So I would have maybe, you know, taken a step back, maybe taken a step to the right and shot a little bit more into this left wall, which perhaps is a little bit more empty, but you can't deny the emotion in this image. At the end of the day, you're shooting this for your clients, and your clients are going to love this. They don't care that there's a light switch in the back. They're seeing this moment that they will cherish forever, and I think you can't really put a price on that. But, you know, in those moments, if you have any time, any wiggle room to sort of pivot, maybe get it from a slightly different angle, I always encourage that. Try to see it from as many angles as you can, because sometimes when you get a straight on shot, we are going to get, you know, everything. But I actually think it's quite beautiful. I bet the door are just enamored with this.
I agree with everything that you both said, and there isn't really too much more for me to add, but since we are talking about a first look, we covered composition. One thing I want to throw out there is how I approach first look in terms of the lighting. So I am always looking for, if I'm looking at the first look from this point of view, I want flat light coming over my head. The reason being is you're going to see the expressions because the light is on both of them. If you move to the left, you'll have dimensional light on the father because the light is coming in from my head from the center. If you move to the right, you'll have dimensional light on the side. You'll always have good light no matter where you go. And I think sometimes when people do a first look with the lighting is coming in from the side from this point of view, and then therefore, for example, it is in this image, it's subtle, but it can be more dramatic in other circumstances, and it can really play against you. So the light is coming from off to the right. You can see the light on her face. The back side of her head is in shadow. It looks like his face was brushed up because the light is coming more from the right. Now, it's not real dramatic, so you can push and pull a bit, but if you can find, my advice I give to any photographer, you can find a space where this point of view, the light is coming over your head, flat on them, you'll see both of their faces. If you step to the left, you'll have dimensional light on the person on the right. If a step to the right, you have dimensional person. No one's face will be completely shallow.
I'll actually
Can you put the mic a little closer?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
the easy rule that I use on the wedding day is that everybody with their cell phones in the spot are probably better off in the different spot because they're getting this exact shot. And now, and maybe sometimes folks can get their friends and family there, their phones might fuck up, and now I get them with their reactions and their side. One is, yeah, sure, they'll have the phone, but the phone is here, and she's tearing up, or he's doing the thing. And so, yeah, with that, the easy rule is not always, but oftentimes, if a guest is standing there with their phone taking a photo, you could probably find a much better, more artistic angle.
I would also, from a documentary point of view, I wouldn't mind seeing some of that action and, obviously get a shot of the two of them. But I would personally love to see people crowding around with a couple of cameras. It adds to that story and that moment and how special it is to everyone.
Awesome.
This area, which to have the excellent is this Is this actually on the live stream right
Yes.
now? Go and ask Jerry to give me hand draw the best image for you in his interpretation.
For every single person.
It will look like a piece of Canson paper.
And if you haven't, I don't know if Dario tunes his own one, but if you haven't seen his images, they're amazing.
I can't wait to see the book this year.
I don't like to compliment people who are better than me.
This is a really lovely image captured by the maker, and obviously the dance party has started, and a very smart lens choice because this is not just about the couple dancing, it's also about their family and friends around them. And I got up really close to look at all the expressions on their friends and family's faces, and I mean, pretty much everyone there, except maybe for like a server clearing a table all the way in the background. I mean, everyone is connected, everyone is engaged. And this is also shot from a high perspective, so whether they were standing on a chair or they just held their arms up, shooting wide, shooting high was really the best two options to tell this story. So I commend the maker there. I also commend the maker on the overall value scheme. And when I say value scheme, I mean where you're organizing your lights and your darks. So the couple really has the most contrast. The lightest lights and the darkest darks are all right there in the center. And then everyone else around them is less contrasted. So they are secondary. It's a story. You have your lead characters, you have your supporting cast, and this plays out really beautifully.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. I think there's such true, authentic joy in images like this that it's just, I mean, right place, right time, and that's your job as a wedding photographer. I'm really appreciating this sort of natural vignette that's happening, not only because there's sort of, the crowd is kind of circling around them, but because it sort of falls off at the base there. You've got this really lovely natural vignette that actually, continues to draw you right to the center of the story. And I think tonally it's been handled really well. as you sort of go around the image, it's just, you've still got plenty of detail in those blacks. There's not a lot of like things that I can sort of fault here because I just think it's quite lovely. What I wouldn't mind seeing is just a slightly closer crop. I think for me that's what I would love to see, and that by saying a closer crop, I would just bring it in on the sides. I don't know about the space at the top, but obviously you've got this guy with his hand and the phone that you probably didn't want to lose, but I wouldn't mind seeing just a slightly closer crop. But apart from that, I think this is a great moment. It's been handled beautifully, and I'm sure the couple loves it.
I think most of it has been covered, and I kind of want to, maybe you guys can give a perspective, and I'm sometimes lazy with this, but when I go to weddings as a guest, it's so common to see one of two things with the photographer's camera and their flash. It will be in the hot shoe, and they will do one of two things. Either they're firing it at TTL, maybe they have kickers like we see here, but they're firing at TTL so everybody is nicely exposed but very, very flat. Or they have one of the bulb, I don't know what those are called, like the domes that are on, but they still are overlighting everybody. And I think what might be happening here is if there's an on-camera flash, it's either firing very low just to fill the shadows that would be in the foreground, or I've known numerous photographers, I'm not one of those, who sometimes are not using anything on camera and are just using the surrounding lights, and when the folks are just switching lights. I don't have, honestly, the patience to do that. I mean, I can switch them when I know I'm sliding over to this side or to that side, but how do you guys shoot? Because what I love is that this is very believable being in a movie. So that's one question would be for you guys. The other one is more for Dario, and that is, I looked at this paper, and I think you know what you're doing. I would never look at this paper and even do it. I don't think, you have the sample pack, and I get lazy. I'm like, well, I'll just do these 3, maybe 4. How much does it take? Do you already know that you're going to, this is the paper choice for this? How much because I would never, but it works so well.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me how, what's the process? How do I decide one paper or the other? I tend to have a sort of instinctive reaction. It's very visceral, and usually it's because of the look and feel, the mood, the story going on. I try to interpret the vision of the author. Now, usually, this type of photography of PJ, I will go with a matte paper, if that was what you meant. Like an RJ88 or Photograph and stuff like that.
RJ88.
Yeah.
Easy choice.
Easy choice. But then I thought, you know what, there is an energy here, and there are some white points and black points dispersed in the composition. I wanted to have more dynamic range, more vibrancy, and I went for the variety because I wanted to be like crisp and poppy because of the energy of the couple having the time of their life. Like I said, it's an interpretation. So there is in this case, there is no right or wrong, in my opinion. It's pretty much about the vibe that you want to get. And for instance, when I'm hired to print, I usually have a Zoom call, and the author will tells me, okay, I want to go this direction, that direction, that's what I like, that's what I don't like. I don't see my work, I don't know, with whatever, the glossy paper or black matte or anything.
But what happens if they're wrong?
First of all, thank you, because clearly, what happens if they are wrong? I'm never wrong. It must be them.
Obviously.
I totally advise. Not only that, I provide some simulations, and if there's not enough, I print on different media. So I print on different paper options, just to say, hey, this is what you thought it would have been. This is what I think, works better. What would you think? And we pick up from there. So but in this case it was like 30 seconds, less 20 seconds, and I thought, okay, this is variety. And I went for it. It also helps that I've been doing this for 20 years, so maybe a little bit of experience.
The only other thing I would say is, you were talking about some off-camera flash, questioning if there's any on-camera fill. I think too many photographers prioritize off-camera flash as if it's always the best option all the time. I love off-camera flash. I love what it can do. I love the creative control. I love the dimension and just to create a sense of form, and so it's very creative. In a circumstance like this, I think using flat even light is the best option, because there are two. If you look at the groom's face, his face has some shadow on it because the light is coming from off-camera right. There's kind of a random pop of highlight on the bride's shoulder. If you look at some of the people on the left, there's a cast shadow from the arm being up, covering the face. It's too risky. And the groom or the bride could have lifted their hand up, and then you have this black line going across their expression. And you can explain to the couple all you want, oh, but I was using off-camera flash. It doesn't matter. You have to prioritize the storytelling and the emotion over getting more fancy with light. So when there's a lot of people, in general I say this, the less control you have over a situation, the more flat the light you should use. The more control you have over a situation, like if you're just photographing an individual or just photographing a group of 4 people, then you have more control, you can use more dimensional light, you can get it off camera. So I used to always use only off-camera flash years and years ago because I thought, and I learned this from my own mistakes, I thought off-camera flash equals better all the time, and I was getting these cast shadows, and then if there's aura or there's a lot of people that are crowded, you can't go to your light stand and move it and adjust it. Flat, even light on your camera, you can bounce it off of something, a white party if you want. You are prepared for any situation you're in.
No. So we meet again.
This next sprint is brought to us by Canson Infinity, which is Dario's pants. Just bending over right in the face. I apologize. My sense of humor, I'm sorry. You probably didn't know I would be this terrible when you asked me to stay here. He's just smiling, but this is the first of last time.
He's only a little bit embarrassed.
Don't you have a print? You have 1 or 2. There's 3 in there. Which one? I'm done with it.
Are you going to go?
It just motivates me to do more. And I'm like, all right, we got next time. I'll just be
So,
not twice. Yeah, but so. Thanks for the assistance. That was great. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The texture.
That's the BFK weaves with that chalky texture.
That makes sense. Yep.
I love the perspective of this, but at the same time, the perspective in kind of body the image, because it feels just to go one level. I think with the wide angle perspective, you still get your scene, but you can just see a little bit more of the humans behind the scene. And although I love the perspective, I'm still fighting with them. It just feels a little bit too hard.
You feel deserve it.
It may not be possible to get lower, or it may be a case of lying in the stomach and shooting through a head or something together. Just a little bit lower. For me, it would have made it a bit stronger. But I love how it's, I love the perspective, I love the vision, lighting on the bride, I think is really, really good because although you've got the highlights and the lights above her, they almost act as a leading down into her, and you can't help but look at her. So the lighting on the bride is really well. The lighting a little bit of a challenge there because it is very dark and you can't really see a lot of the so it's always going to be a challenge to light and make him potentially not postpone as a bride, but prominent as one of the subjects on the screen. Subjects aside, I love the spiral nature of it, how it draws your eye around the frame. I'm feeling just from the ego that the areas, the little diamonds around the actual frame where the photos are, they're just a little bit heavy in the place, and it feels like there's just a little bit of detail lost there. So maybe if there was just a little bit less contrast in the entire frame, except for the two subjects, I think taking away a little bit of contrast gives us back a little bit more detail. We'll still keep it at the same luminosity, so, but just taking away that little bit of contrast and bring back just a little bit of detail. I think it's kind of lost in those blacks just a little bit. We keep the detail, keep the contrast on the cover. I think it's just going to make things stand out just a fraction more. But if this was one of my photos and one of my couples, fantastic. We go over these locations in Australia to shoot something like this would be awesome. Don't get the opportunity, you'd go crazy and stuff like that. Well done to the artist though, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to commend the artist because this is technically probably quite a challenge. But this is an incredible location, and this is one of those moments where we have to make a choice. Is the image going to be about the location or the subjects? And I think in this case, unfortunately, it's become a little bit more about the location, and we're sort of losing a bit of this moment. So I 100% agree. And if there was a way to come down with it, which I'm assuming there was, it would be lovely to just come down to one level, a little lower on this angle, just so it's brought to the couple level to the story. Because right now for me, the story is the architecture. And the architecture is really stunning, but I do think it's just distracting from the I find the lighting on it just a little too bright. You know, it's consistent with the bride, but my eye is just on the I
the size. When I looked over on the screen, I saw immediately you can see the room. And so to me, this would say that, you know, for the client in their home, and they should. This is big print worthy to hang in their home, and I adore it. Even in an album, like this can be like a full spread going all the way across. I'm going to try and just argue from the perspective of the maker, because when I was starting in competitions, and I don't believe that this is anybody who's just beginning, this to me feels like a very skilled photographer, they would say, I don't think I can't come down a layer, because you see the stairs, I'm standing at the very top. If I come down a layer, I end up on that side, and then then I have to shoot the other direction, things like that. So my response to them, if they said something like that to me, is maybe then, if you can't go down to them to get them a little bit more, now maybe pull them up and they can go onto the stairs that are off on the left side and be, yes, they're going to be now maybe connected, and he can be helping her walk up or down the stairs. They can be having some sort of contact there. So either playing with them on the left side, playing with them on the stairs that are on the bottom, that would be a possibility, just getting them a little bit closer more into the camera. And the real trick in terms of how I would do it would be not to immediately possibly do with the bride. If this is the portrait session, let's say the wedding party is just outside hanging out somewhere, I'm testing on my assistant, and maybe, or if there's a couple of guests that are there, I love to take a couple and say like, hey, you guys want an epic photo, like the two of you, and then that allows me to test and not really bother the couple as much. This way, when they walk in, I've already got everything down there, because this is not an easy scene to test in, so I try not to do it on the couple, but otherwise I think you guys are spot on. I would probably have 2 or 3 different spots as test locations until I get one, but it's a tough place to shoot.
I agree on both accounts. The fact that this is a very skilled photographer that's done this, and the only question I have, which feeds into A, the crop, and B, getting down lower, is you can see that the photographer is on the top stairs because of the stairs that come up at the right. You can also see a large ring that is covering the top 2 of those 6 lights. So my question would be, is that photographer, is the artist standing there looking over the rail, or do they have, or did they potentially get down on their tummy and hold their camera through the rails, because you can see there's gaps in the rails. If they didn't do it and they just shot over the rail, then there's at least a meter or 3 feet that we can play with in terms of height. And that would A, fix the crop, it would B, potentially fix the height. So I'm curious if there was the opportunity for that photographer to lay on their stomach and feed their camera between the rails. Because if that was the case and they could do that, that would be perfect. Because we often get stuck in the fact that we see a scene and then we can't move. But one thing to remember is that we have feet, we've got a heartbeat, so we can move anywhere we like. We can go up and down, sideways, so don't feel stuck. Like if something doesn't look or feel right, take a step either direction and see what it looks like then.
Yeah.
I've got the big one now.
I mean, beautiful stuff. Gosh, speaking of cool locations, I don't know where you're all finding these, but this is
definitely not where I live. Congratulations to the maker. This is quite a spectacular scene, and you are managing a lot of different elements here. And I'd like to say that, you know, at first glance here, these are being managed quite well. What grabs my attention immediately is this fountain situation that's happening. Because at first you think that they're actually in the water, but then you realise that they're behind the water stream. But it does give this beautiful impression that they're in the middle of the fountain because of the way it's been shot. And I think that's quite magical. This beautiful architectural, you know, almost Moroccan sort of pattern that's happening on the right is really adding to the interest. I don't think it's sort of distracting me because I do keep coming back to this couple in this moment. I think I would love to see it pulled back just slightly because I'm not sure about the crop on the bottom of the fountain for whatever reason. It's making it feel just a little bit off for me, but the lighting has been handled quite well, and even the way that that sort of light is hitting the water, it almost looks like sequins sort of being hung. You can sort of imagine that it's not even water, that it's sort of like, you know, some sort of sparkling material. It's really magical. But yeah, I think for me right now, I would love to see just a slightly more pulled back shot on this, just so that we get the full arc of these circles that we have both at the top and the bottom.
Exposure just right for everything. The darkest of darks, the lightest of the sky. When you walk in, why everything looks so easy, whatever it is because to our eye, which has very dynamic range of the camera, the scene just works. And then you get home and you look at it and you're like, well, that's a little bit too big. Flip the lights there, the blacks start to block out. And so the struggle is now is there extra light flash that you have to now throw from the top to make sure that the couple is well lit, because now there's not enough light. And so, you know, I'm not really critiquing anything specific right now, but when we look at this, the scene is almost set for you, but it's not, because what you see as the final product may not be all that you get is just an initial capture. If you're walking up with your cell phone and shot it, that may be something very different in terms of what you're getting, because to get that quality of light on them is very, very difficult. So I'd be curious to see if this was just natural light coming in, or if they even accentuated a little bit more to push more light down. Because if you want to start dodging the couple and lighting them up, you're also going to start doing it. It's going to be very difficult to avoid the water drops that are coming around there, not having this little halo-y hot spot that's happening. So I commend the maker on handling the light on them. The part where the image starts to, where I need to push it a little bit more is in the shadows themselves that I start to use in the print. I can't quite see them on from my end, but theoretically when we're judging, we shouldn't be looking at the screen anyway. In competitions, they're often not calibrated for the audience, and it's a large projector that uses even more dynamic range. So for this, I would love to see more details in the blacks. Everything's highlights done very, very well, especially in the midday sky, just those darks.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with both my judges. There's quite a bit to unpack here. Firstly, I want to talk about the shadows, which you already talked about. I completely agree. I think it's, if there was a little bit more details in those shadows, just to sort of brighten things up, or not brighten things up, but just show us a little bit more detail inside that room, I think that would be a huge advantage. Secondly, with the crop, I agree. Would like to see a little bit more of that room, just to finish off the elements of the inner room in your head. So you want to see the bottom where the water's falling, see the climax at the top, and just a little more room on the sides, just to give this a little bit more room to breathe. If that's not possible because of walls or something like that, then there always is the option to do a bit of plumbing and that sort of stuff, just to give yourself that little bit more room. In terms of a difficult situation, and it's probably just me, but I'm a little bit conflicted with, well, I can see the light that's coming from the top, and it's been handled very well, considering the dark room and a really bright sort of area at the top there. I'm a little bit conflicted because the light is obviously coming from the top, but then you've also got the light coming from the right-hand side, but I've only got a shadow from the top. Now, I understand that the light from the top is probably more than what would be coming from the side. I'm kind of just looking for a little bit of shadow or a little bit of something on the other side. But then, obviously, with the light above, if the artist has used flash and added more light into it, then obviously it's going to wipe out that little hint of shadow from the side. In regards to the pose, you can tell that this is a very deliberate pose because they've probably seen the light coming from the top and they've obviously thought to themselves, right, how am I going to use this light? I need to get this stuff in such a way that is letting the light guide me, in which they've done really, really well. So you can see the guides, the lady's chin up, the man, his chin up is a little bit as well. But the one thing, there's two things that are sort of, I think, would make this pose and make this scene stronger. And firstly, it's just the change in position of her arm, because you can see the woman's arm crosses straight across both their shoulders, and then the fingers disappear behind the gentleman's head. If we were to just pull her arm down just a little bit more, so that her fingers were, say, on his cheek or on his neck, it's still the same level of intimacy, it's still the same feeling, same sensibility, but you're just softening that part of the body for her, which I think she really needs. And the last part of the pose is the expression. If you look very closely at their expressions in this photo, their expressions are quite plain. And when it comes to expression, especially when there's an intimate moment, expression is everything, and it takes you into the moment and it solidifies the moment for you. The expression here, they've just got their eyes closed and their faces feel a little bit blank and a little bit cold, which fights against the warmth of their skin tones. So I would say to the artist, congratulations on your lighting, on your directing, on your posing, and seeing the light. Just show us a little bit more, show us a little bit more detail in the shadows, and use your personality to be, do, or say something to create the expression that you need from your couple, because expression is the one thing that will take it to another level.
All right. Mic drop. Thank you, Michael.
Of all the flavors, and you chose salty. I know, right? Like it just got elevated.
Yeah, we all just got elevated. I'm walking the places before, and it's so if I expose you, it was too hot. And is that through HDR? I just expose for the lights. It's an oldie but a goodie, so if I would have redone it, there's definitely
no, my heart is breaking for you. Yes. Oh, I know. I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, so like I just
sort of utility coming together for your wedding. So it just makes me want to get drawn in right away, and the use of your repetitive arches in this as well is just really cool.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The title is Moon Sun.
Moon Sun is the title, which also brings in the great choice for the title because it's giving us so much context in this image.
The guy is
I almost would want to see the room lit with a light that matches the room. I don't know how everyone else feels about that, but I feel, I mean, I'm not off the road, but there's also going to get like a long instead of that room tones, which would really kind of give that meaning here so people coming together and the colors of it. I also commend the authors. It's just such a beautiful tableau and it's a beautiful story. And I agreed on this hallmark versus polite. There's an incredible clarity to this image in the couple. And while I love it, I also maybe think that it might be too much clarity to the point where I sort of want to see more detail in the gentleman's side. There's a whole lot of detail going on. Obviously, she's in the foreground and that's going to happen. But we have him in such high clarity that his surrounds are sort of a little bit drab compared to hers. I love the title. I think the title is wonderful. And obviously the styling, this beautiful ornate outfit are just really complementing the scene. Crop-wise, I would like to see what's on the top of her side. I think the author's been quite concise with her side, but because of that, we've sort of got this little extra space above her side that sort of is dead space for me. So I'd either love to see a little bit more. Obviously, bringing it down on her side would be tricky because then you're going to lose that perfect frame in the archway. But because he's in tube arches, it would be interesting to see if there's that second arch on her side. Obviously, then they're going to get smaller because you can move back, but wouldn't mind seeing just a tiny bit more of the arch on the right with her, just to continue this beautiful sort of pattern of arches. But overall, I think the post-production on this has been handled really beautifully. I think it would take very minor tweaks to bring it up to the next level, and I commend the author because it's quite striking. Well, I did want to say one other thing so I actually know this location, I photographed this location, so I see insider information on this location. You don't want to see what's above that location. Yeah, so I think they made a great choice for the bride and groom to not include everything that's up there. What I would actually like to see is less of this other warm sunshine rush. And I would like to see, I don't think the sculpture is adding anything to their story. So if we changed the crop on this, and maybe did a square crop, and still had some of that blue light coming in from up there and everything like that, and maybe popped a flash and put something behind the grill to bring out his essence, him there, instead of just being a black spot.
Damn it, you just said everything else to the side.
What's to the right? Because it almost looks like blackish.
See you tomorrow.
Take it away, man.
Another one that was on that. Yeah. I'm kind of agreeing with both of you in terms of the elements and some of what you said. For me, when I first saw this, the crop was always square. For me, the crop is through the centre of the pillar on the right of the bride.
I knew that part, but there wasn't a better way to hold the phone.
Yeah, the big white pillar.
The last 2 hours you're holding the
Through
phone.
the centre there, and then it's through the centre of
It's almost over.
Right, yeah. So that would be my square crop. And I'm a photographer who shoots a lot with the hindsight of Photoshop. And if you don't want to see what's on the top of the warmer area, then I almost don't want to see what's on the top of the cooler area as well. So if this wasn't a competition entry, and this was just something for my clients, what I would actually do is in Photoshop, knowing what I can and can't get away with, I would just extend the wheel upwards so that you actually didn't see all the little pebbles and all the little rails at the top. So, because what that does is it creates, there's a lot of detail in the bride, and where there's a lot of detail in here on the right hand side, if you extend the wheel up, it removes a little bit of detail from one of you, it makes his side much more clear and much more simple. So, in doing that, I think we still need to bring him out potentially from that background a little bit and to separate him from the darkness, which is a simple flash or even a constant light. It doesn't need to be a lot, it just needs to be enough just to give just a little slight ring around him just so that it changes and separates him from the background. If you wanted to get a bit crazy, you wanted to add a colour to it, you could also put a blue gel on this flash to amplify the coolness of that side. So, but for me, the crop is spread, like I said, but in terms of posing, I think the posing is very well thought out, it's beautiful, it's traditional, the detail in the bride, the detail in both people is really, really good. You can see right into the dress and see right into his outfit as well. Beautiful photo, love the concept. The name really enhances the experience for the viewer, and it's really, really well done.
And now we take a couple of minutes of break, we switch the live, and we go to the portrait session. Right?
Okay, so just they can hear me, right? Yeah, we're just going to take a break and we're going to switch over to the other stream. See you there.
Are you? Oh my god, I love your work.
Thank
oh
you, Ben.
And so kind of
You understood.
I'd love to take a class from you on fabric.
So should I just stop
Tell
it
me
right
why.
now?
Because you do the most beautiful thing.